It's the 24th of July, and this is your News Bite brought to you by eNCA.com. I'm Marcel Gordon, and in your news today, the Western Cape High Court grants the president's bid to pause impeachment proceedings, the Trump administration announces another round of economic tariffs, and Banyana Banyana ready for another Africa Cup of Nations campaign. The Western Cape High Court has temporarily halted impeachment proceedings, granting President Cyril Ramaphosa's bid to halt the process for now. That pause is pending his application to review the Section 89 independent panel report, which found Ramaphosa has a case to answer with regards to the theft of foreign currency at his Phala farm. Here's Judge Andrea Lagrange.
There are three judgments. The first judgment concludes, for reasons set out therein, that the President has not made out a case for an interim interdict. It proposes that the application be dismissed. The second judgment concludes that the President has made out a case for an interim interdict for the reasons set out in that judgment. It proposes that an interdict of limited duration be granted. The third judgment concurs with the second judgment. The second judgment is the majority judgment. In the result, the following order is made. 1. Pending the determination by this court of the applicant's review under case number 2026/119192, the first and second respondents are interdicted from proceeding with the public impeachment hearings in terms of Rule 129 M of the National Assembly Rules. 2. The cost of the application shall stand over for determination by the court which hears the review.
Parliament's Impeachment Committee says it will study the High Court's judgment before deciding on its next steps. Here's the committee's chair, Makashule Ghana.
I note the decision of the Western Cape High Court to interdict the public hearings of the Impeachment Committee pending the review by President Ramaphosa that he has applied for. We now await the full judgment, which we will study and will then be able to give further updates in terms of the work that the committee still has to do, because from what I heard is that it's only the public hearings that have been interdicted, but as soon as we have studied the full judgment, we will then be able to give further updates from our side as the impeachment committee.
Action SA's parliamentary leader, Lerato Ngubeni, says the High Court's decision to pause those hearings risks delaying accountability.
We are concerned that if justice is not seen to be done, it also will be tantamount or risk looking like its accountability being delayed or denied. Look, we've seen this movie before, right? We've seen that sometimes it looks like South Africa is being managed through our court systems. We do have a separation of powers principle. Our view is that it is Parliament that holds the executive to account and not the other way around. And the fact that it is the executive now that is wanting to stop Parliament from doing its work as the representatives of the people, we find that quite worrying. But we have seen this playbook before. He is well within his rights to do what he needs to do. However, it is important for us to remember that it is our taxpayers' monies that are going to be paying for all of these lengthy court proceedings, etc., and all of these interdicts, and for his review to take place in about a month or two's time, in September or so.
In other news now, Northwest businessman Suliman Carrim's application to postpone his Madlanga Commission testimony was heard in an open session on Friday. Carrim wanted to give his evidence at a later date due to health reasons. This follows reports that he was seen at a Cape Town shopping centre while claiming to be unwell. This week's proceedings at the Commission was dominated by the testimony of IDAC head Andrea Johnson, who's also recovered from ill health. Political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast says her testimony exposes the deep weaponization of law enforcement by powerful individuals and groups.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind, in my view, is the weaponization of these institutions, IDEC in particular. We've heard about how they've been used as an instrument to fight political battles. A case in point is the charges that were instituted against General Mukwele, despite the fact that the head of IDEC, Advocate Johnson, did not have a look at the CV of the person in question before signing off those allegations to be examined. So you can see that some people wanted to use to pursue a particular political agenda, but she has been found wanting, because even herself, she has acknowledged that she was off the mark in terms of providing wrong information to a parliament.
Government is on a mission to knock on the door of more than 6,000 state-owned houses across the country. It wants to determine who occupies those buildings allocated to various departments and where the taxpayers are paying for unnecessary expenditure. The Public Works and Infrastructure Director General has 30 days to investigate the properties and report back to Minister Dean McPherson.
I don't think that this issue of who lives where should be very difficult to answer, because if we have an up-to-date register and that information is easily available, we should, by a click of a mouse, be able to access that information. I suspect that it's not going to be that easy, which is to the point that you asked. But also what it doesn't do, it doesn't allow us to take commercial decisions about what we should do with our assets. If we are notionally the largest owner of fixed property assets in this country, we should be generating billions of rands in revenue from the performance of those assets, just like any listed asset manager or property trust would be doing so. But we do exactly the opposite. If there is legitimate operational reasons for those to exist, that we will accept that. But where there is not, and there are millions of rands being spent on rates, services, and maintenance, that it's time that we dispose of those and rather use that money towards infrastructure and public works projects.
South Africa's trade ties with the US have hit yet another snag, along with around 60 other countries targeted by the Trump administration. Exporters here now face fresh pressure after Washington slapped a 12.5% tariff on selected South African goods. The measure is part of a broader crackdown on countries the US accuses of using forced labor. And reaction from around the world is streaming in, with countries dismissing the claim of illegal labor practices. The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, has questioned the rationale behind yet another round of tariffs after the previous tariffs were struck down by the US Supreme Court.
What I've heard also, the argumentation behind that it's forced labor, sorry, but you can't say that for European Union. If you compare our labor laws to the ones of United States, people have paid vacations, we have very good conditions, labor conditions for our employees, so it's not really grounded.
Meanwhile, oil prices have surged above $100 per barrel as tensions between the United States and Iran continue to escalate. At the same time, the rand has come under pressure following the Reserve Bank's decision to keep interest rates unchanged. Economists warn that the combination of higher oil prices and a weaker currency has significantly reduced the chances of a fuel price cut next month. Here's Avrag Ramdani from Effectus Capital Management.
Going into the start of July, oil prices were at $72 a barrel. Now oil price is over $100 a barrel. The rand was sort of 16.20. Now it's trading at 16.80 to the dollar. So the reality is that whilst we were expecting some relief in terms of the fuel price, going into August, that's not going to happen right now. There's going to be no relief, and the only way there will be relief is if the oil price comes down, and for that to come down, we need the tension between the US and Iran to actually subside, and for them to have a ceasefire and work towards a deal. So it's not good news for motorists right now.
Oh well, shall we just then hold on to the week's bit of good news, the interest rates left unchanged. The Reserve Bank says inflation is, however, likely to remain above 4% until early next year. The decision surprised many economists who had widely expected a hike. Here's Mpho Molopyane from Alexander Forbes.
Beginning of July, most economists were like, okay, the July hike is 50-50 now. But yesterday we had a hotter than expected inflation print, which showed that underlying inflationary pressures are persisting. And that also came out in the statement as well, right? That it's not only fuel inflation that the SARB needs to be worrying about. Services inflation is about 5%. So that is overall underlying concerning inflationary environment, especially in an environment where the SARB is now targeting 3%, right? So the hold was a surprise. It was also inconsistent with the messaging in the statement overall. And yeah, I'm still struggling to make sense of it.
In other news we're keeping an eye on, 8 Basotho nationals have been arrested in Pretoria during a multidisciplinary operation to enforce labour and immigration laws. Their employer was also arrested and could face a fine of 10,000 rand for each undocumented employee found to be working illegally. In news from further afield now, the foreign ministers of 8 countries have issued a joint statement strongly condemning the latest storming of Al-Aqsa Mosque in the occupied East Jerusalem by ultra-nationalist Israelis. The foreign ministers are from Jordan, Egypt, Indonesia, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the UAE. More than 4,000 Israeli settlers, alongside the far-right national security minister, entered the mosque compound, which is one of Islam's holiest sites, during a Jewish holiday. Palestinian officials condemned the move as a dangerous escalation. On to news from the world of sports now. And Banyana Banyana coach Desiree Ellis is thrilled to have a full complement of players as they enter their final prep for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, with the team's overseas-based players finally joining the squad. Banyana opened their campaign against Tanzania on Monday.
Before you close your eyes and open it again, it's upon you. It's not just a WAFCON. And I think when you look at the countries that are here and the countries that didn't make it, it tells you how big it is, how huge it is. Just to mention 2 debutants, Cabo Verde and Malawi, coming here. Originally, it was till 12. Cameroon wasn't in. Thought Ivory Coast was unfortunate. They lost on a penalty shootout, and I thought, when you look at that, it shows how serious people are taking this tournament. I think everybody that's here has the same ambition, just to qualify for the World Cup first, and we have a similar ambition, but we obviously start with the first game against Tanzania. We've always had very tight games against them, so we're not going to underestimate the team.
And Formula One Championship leader Kimi Antonelli is aiming to finish the first half of the season on a high at this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. Antonelli boasts a 45-point lead ahead of Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton in the driver's standings. The Mercedes sensation has only missed podium once this season so far, winning 6 of the last 10 races.
Yeah, still a weekend to go before break, but it's been good first half. Very happy. Of course, things to look back and to improve, but I think on execution-wise, we've done a great job with the team. Even with myself, I'm happy. But of course, still a weekend to go where we want to finish well in order to go on summer break happy. But definitely good. More than what we expected. But still, we got to keep this thing rolling, keep raising the bar. So, looking forward to this weekend, summer break, and then second half.
And that's how we wrap today's News Bite. For developments in these and more, keep an eye on eNCA.com and DSTV channel 403.